The year was 1943, and the RAF 17th Operational Training Unit, based at Silverstone, was teaching pilots how to fly the Vickers Wellington twin-engined bombers. But these large aircrafts couldn't be used on small grass airfields, and so RAF Silverstone was constructed as a Royal Air Force bomber station and was given two long runways along with an additional third runway. These formed the classic triangle shape, which was designed to make the takeoff and landing more effective according to wind direction. It was an enormous site when it was active, and the base for numbered 17th Operational Training Unit was home to more than 2,000 personnel before closing. These airfields were decommissioned at the end of the war in 1946. Silverstone languished for several years, largely as a disused site, until a guy named Maurice Gagan, a resident of the nearby Silverstone village, acquired a brand new Fraser Nash sports car. And around that time, a certain spirit of courage and recklessness was lingering in the air. Young men, no longer deployed in active service, had returned to normal life with a thirst for adventure. Frustrated by the limitations of nearby country road, Gagan had gone hunting for an open stretch on which he could put his speedy acquisition to test. When out on a short trip one day, he discovered with great excitement that the nearby airfield offered access from the runway to a perimeter road and back again, creating a ready-made circuit. This allowed him to test his new car's power to the fullest. He sketched out a faintly triangular 2-mile route, and after a few stabs at testing on Gagan's homespun track, the Fraser Nash Club thought it would be nice to put a proper race. And so, in September 1947, 11 cars gathered at the dispersal point at Maggots. During the race, Gagan would collide with a wandering sheep, which would go down in the history, and this race would be known as the Mutton Grand Prix. But what the people wanted and Britain needed was a proper circuit. There were hill climbs at Shelsley Walsh and Prescott, speed trials on the seafront in Brighton and Poole, but nothing track-based for the public to enjoy, like the other street races on the European continent. So the Royal Automobile Club started knocking on the Air Ministry's door in 1946 as they saw potential in Silverstone. It was in the middle of England, accessible for many, fed by a decent road network, and plenty of room for spectators. It wasn't easy to get the lease, but on 30 June 1948, the club's chairman, Wilfred Andrews, announced that the RAC had secured a 1-year lease on the Silverstone site. He announced that the first International Grand Prix would take place there, and so the Royal Automobile Club International Grand Prix was to be held at Silverstone on 2nd October 1948. Andrew recruited Jimmy Brown, an ex-RAF pilot, to prepare the circuit, which he promptly did. 170 tons of straw bales, 10 miles of signal wiring, and 620 marshals were needed to get it ready for race day. While its title was downgraded by the FIA from the British Grand Prix to the RAC Grand Prix, racing at Silverstone was now born and ready. The first event attracted 100,000 spectators, twice as many as had ever been recorded at a race meeting, and drivers on the grid included a 19-year-old Sterling Moss. They raced on the runway with long straight, separated by tight hairpin turns. The track was marked out with hay bales. Luigi Valloresi went on to win the inaugural RAC GP with his Maserati 4CLT48, followed by his teammate and pupil Alberto Ascari, who arrived in the same car 42 seconds later. It wasn't perfect. The track was militantly flat and not as handsome as other European street circuits. It was also pretty bumpy, and the runway section still had lights in them. However, in 1950, the very first official Formula One Grand Prix was held and was witnessed by none other than King George VI himself. And between 1963 and 1986, the BGP alternated between Silverstone and Brands Hatch. But as we know now, it has returned solely to its original site, which is now known as the home of the British Grand Prix. Since the first race, the circuit has expanded to 3.66 miles with 18 turns and witnessed Sir Jackie Stewart securing his first British Grand Prix win in 1969, Williams winning its first ever GP in 1979, and Lewis Hamilton mastering wet conditions in 2008, winning the GP by more than a minute. One can argue that Silverstone was really the birthplace of Formula One.